Welcome to The Beam, where curiosity stirs conversations, taking us a step further into the future we desire. Here we bring you the issues that matter, the voices that challenge, and the insights that inspire. I'm Sunas Nathaniel, and now before we get into today's powerful conversation, let's bring you a spotlight. Stick with us. It promises to be highly engaging. We'll be right back.
As lawmakers convene for the final plenary session of the week, a pressing public issue takes center stage. Local flight fares running into almost ₦500,000 worries Nigerians.
What the airlines operators in Nigeria have done in the past 12 hours is completely uncalled for. And I stand with the content of this very motion that our operators, airline operators, should be called to order.
My own opinion is that we should be very circumspect on this matter. We cannot jump into regulating air cost prices because there are variables that I believe are technical and we need a greater in-depth analysis before we can take such a decision.
If you look at the airfare at the end of your ticket when you book, you will see the diagnosis, or you will see the breakdown how the airfare is charged, and you will see how much money goes to the airline operator.
For the first time in 20 years, this administration, through national reform, has made it possible for international dry leaser to accept to come to Nigeria for the first time. And you know what that means? It means that they are getting aircrafts now 1/3 of what the usual price was.
As the debate continues, lawmakers kick against subsidizing flight fares and propose alternatives instead.
Urge the federal government to reduce the airport and other auxiliary charges by 50% during the festive period only.
The House also resolves to urge the federal government to immediately grant tax waivers to airlines to reduce flight fares this Christmas season. The motion is adopted as amended, and lawmakers move to amend the Central Bank of Nigeria Act.
Separate the role of governor and the board of director chairman to avoid concentration of powers and ensure professional oversight. The second aspect this bill helps to incur is to introduce a single 6 years non-renewable tenure for the governor of the central bank and deputies. The third aspect of this bill intended to provide is to restricting ways and means of advances to 10% of the previous year's actual renewal.
The bill, which scales second reading, also seeks to mandate a uniform exchange rate and prohibit use of foreign currencies for local transactions, as well as a 90-day notice before the redesign of the Naira. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
Welcome back. Today on The Beam, we're asking a very important question about the future of Africa in the age of AI. Is AI in Africa leveling the playing field, or will it continue to widen the gap between the haves and the have-nots? To help us navigate this very pertinent question, we are joined by a leading data and AI professional, a specialist in analytics engineering, machine learning, and operations. And he's one who works in responsible AI development. He's a published researcher. He's none else than Oluwatosin Oyeladun. You're welcome to The Beam.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, you had a very long list of some of the things you've done in the AI industry, so I didn't want to run through all that. But let's get this conversation on the road because it's important. We've had so many, discussions with regards to, AI. So let's start with the bigger picture. Will AI actually help Africa, close that economic gap? Or will it widen the inequality? Is it likely to make the gap between the rich and the poor even wider? That would be where we should start from.
I wish I could give you a simple answer to this. But the truth is that it might end up doing the both. And, it makes it a very critical moment for Africa because, at present, only about 36% of Africans have access to the internet. And when you think about that for a second, we are talking about using AI to transform the world, but only 2/3 of the continent can even get to be online, to get access to the internet. So if you are a young person, maybe in Ghana, and you have a smartphone and the internet, you can use AI to, improve your skills. You have access to it. You can use it to start the business. You can use it to optimize your work and processes. But then if you're a small farmer in one, rural community without access to electricity itself, so AI might then just become like a science fiction to you. And, this is where it gets interesting because AI has the potential to solve a lot of development barriers between, the rich and the poor. But I'll give you an example. Like, in Kenya and in Nigeria, we have AI-powered tools that are helping, community health workers to diagnose diseases like malaria and tuberculosis by just using a small smartphone, camera. So you can just train a community worker on how to provide medical insights with this, little devices, which would have actually required an expensive lab equipment. Another example is in agriculture, where you have farmers using some AI-driven platforms, to probably get weather predictions, weather alerts, and the rest of them. I think in Ghana, it's called Farmer Line or something like that. So right now, African governments are spending very little, of their GDP on digital infrastructure. So when you compare that to the fact that over 600 million Africans still don't have access to electricity, so you can't successfully run AI without power itself, and then you can't train people without the internet. So that answer actually depends on the choices that we make in the next few years. So if we invest in infrastructure and digital literacy, and also make some inclusive AI policies, then it could be our moment to probably just reduce that gap itself. Several things need to happen.
You just took that out of my mouth. I wanted to go to the data quality, but before that, when you were talking about the whole use of AI and all that, I wanted to quickly ask you. In being honest, we can use AI to do a couple of surgeries this day. Somebody can be in the US and operate on somebody right here in Abuja. Would you want to go through such a procedure, in all honesty, at this time?
No, I don't think we want to go into that yet, because we don't have the framework in Africa that can put these things in place. So how well have we tested them? How well have we used them? So what is the source? You need to first test them before you then look at the success rate of it before you deploy them. So currently we are not ready for that yet in Africa.
All right. Let's talk open source, open source becoming more powerful. And then the question then becomes, should Africa then regulate it before trust is broken down? And how can trust be eroded in this situation when we talk about open source, operations and all that, apps and all the rest? What should be done to really, mitigate the risk? And what risk are we really looking at as we speak?
Okay, so we are actually facing a paradox here. And because the very openness that makes AI accessible could also be the thing that actually destroys the public trust in it. But this is what I actually believe. I believe that, restricting open source AI before we fully understand what it can do, will look like we are trying to lock the laboratory door after we've already released the experiment into the world. So there's a trust dilemma here. Open source AI is both a gift and a risk, because on one hand, it is allowing researchers to be able to build AI tools without having to get billions in funding, which is powerful. But on the other hand, that same openness means that anyone can, access, modify, and weaponize the models. And we're already seeing that with all these deepfakes that can be even used to even swing elections. We can use AI to generate wrong information and then flood it on the social media. We can create voice and video clones. And that is why the World Economic Forum actually ranks AI-driven misinformation to be among the world's top risk. And research has also shown that as humans, it's becoming increasingly difficult to be able to consistently identify what has been generated with AI. Sometimes I myself, I see things and I ask myself again, is this AI or not? So we've crossed the path where we can't tell what is real without the use of technology. So I do not believe that there should be blanket restrictions, all right? Locking down open source AI would actually stifle a lot of innovation, and it's going to basically just put the power of AI itself in the hands of a few, tech giants. The truth is that trust is not destroyed by openness. It is actually destroyed by the lack of accountability. So how accountable are we with it? So the answer isn't to restrict it, itself, but to also build into it trust through transparency and community oversight and smart and governance.
All right. Let's quickly, just before we go on the break, let's quickly talk AI and security. Nigeria's major problem as a security issue. And I'm not talking, data breaches and all that. That's not what I'm talking. Real, physical, on-ground security issues. Where do you think we are right now when it comes to the use of AI in tackling the situation in which we found ourselves? And what needs to be done? What more needs to be done? What better has to be done?
Okay. So Nigeria isn't sleepwalking into an AI-driven security crisis because we are like already in one. The question is if we are going to wake up in time, because right now, lots of organizations in Nigeria, they face a lot of cyber attacks almost daily. So AI has actually changed everything. I mentioned deepfakes.
I was actually talking beyond deepfakes and cyber attacks. I'm talking on the ground. I'm talking kinetic issues. I'm saying how can AI play a role in our kinetic issues per se? Because beyond just the security breaches, like we said, and all the cyber attacks, there are other things on ground which are the real costs of panic in the nation. How does AI come into play, though?
Well, regarding security issues and AI itself, I think we are trying our best on that, to be honest with you. And I'll try to look at some other cases that I haven't mentioned now. I understand that Nigeria has tried, even with other African countries, to secure a lot of surveillance technologies that can be used to help our security system. But the truth is, where exactly are we using it for? Are we using it for the right purpose? And if you look at Nigeria and some other African countries now, they've tried to use these surveillance technologies. I'm talking about digital cameras, surveillance cameras, almost in every street corners to monitor happenings in the country. But then, what's the result itself? How have you used it? What's the result itself? How have you caught criminals? How have you caught terrorists with it? But instead, what we see most times is we see that people who make posts online, probably against a high-ranking official, are being used, to be caught. So we use this to track them. We use AI systems. We use different technology systems to go after this set of people. But in Nigeria, I think there was a pharmacist that was arrested and detained for months without trial because they made a social media post that was critical of a high-ranking official. And the person was charged with terrorism. So these similar cases have also happened in Malawi and in Ghana. So, we are being made to understand that it is, it's meant to catch criminals. But in the true sense of it, it's almost like it's silencing people. But there is actually hope because we are beginning to see pushbacks already. In May of this year, I think ECOWAS court ruled that the Senegal's internet shutdown that happened was actually unlawful and that it violated citizens' rights. So what we need to do is we need to have a comprehensive data protection laws and transparency in how these systems are procured and used. So that in itself, I think we don't have enough in terms of that. We don't have a comprehensive data protection laws as Africa generally. So, this digital surveillance we're talking about is a new form of government control in Africa.
All right, you're watching The Beam, a place where the old is reckoned with and the future is interrogated and power is held to purpose. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, I'm in conversation with a data and AI professional, Oluwatosin Oyeladun, and we're discussing the future of Africa in AI. In this world driven, by AI. Let's continue from where we stopped. We're talking digital surveillance, but I would like to move a bit from, digital surveillance and then go down to, privacy and the threats worldwide. In your view, is it effectively dead, or should we just stop pretending it isn't? basically?
Well, data privacy is not dead, but I will say it's on life support. And then in Africa, particularly in Nigeria, we are seeing, it's flatline in real time. It's getting worse. So the question is, are we willing to fight for it before it's too late and, before we say it's finally dead? So to be clear, globally, data privacy is under siege globally. But in Africa and especially in Nigeria, the assault is even more aggressive. And, the defenses are weak, all right? I think currently, right now, we have over 121 million NIN numbers issued in Nigeria. So that's about biometric data, fingerprints, facial scans that is being collected on more than half of the population, and it is stored in a database. And the thing is that some websites are like selling the data itself to people. So all sourced directly from where it is stored, which is the centralized database. So that, to me, it's not a data breach. It's like a systemic failure itself, because Nigeria is among the leaders when it comes to making biometric registration mandatory for almost everything that you want to do. We are talking about SIM cards, bank accounts, voter cards. Virtually everything you do, needs to go through a biometric registration. And the problem is that the NIMC Act itself, which is meant to protect people's data, all right, it's meant to restrict access to getting people's data without authorization, is not fully protective of people's data. Because I know that we launched the NIN mobile app for secure authentication, but then some users, reported that they were seeing other people's data on their screens. So what that means is that the app was rolled out before the proper security audits were carried out, and that is what happens when you have a surveillance infrastructure built even before you talk about the privacy protection. So it's like there's an illusion of concept whereby we are told that we have control, but it's like an illusion itself. So we've been seeing some civil society organizations file lawsuits demanding that there is a data protection impact assessment itself before any digital ID expansion is made. And the reason is because once you have the infrastructure built already, it's permanent and it can be weaponized. We need to, first of all, enforce the existing laws we have, the data protection laws we have. We need to enforce them. We also need to make citizens aware of what data is being collected about them. At least you're aware that, okay, this is my data, and who exactly has access to my data, and exactly how it's being used as well. These are things that are not put in place. All right. So the data protection bodies also needs to be free of any sort of political interference itself. It needs to be independent on its own, and digital literacy, just to cover the aspect of the citizens themselves. So they need to know their rights in terms of their data being collected, how it's used. So the question is that, are we now going to fight to revive this, or we just let it keep going down as it is currently? Because once the privacy is gone, it's never coming back again.
All right. So let's get to big tech. Big tech dominates AI, and we would like to know then, can Africa build its own AI giants, or are we just destined to remain consumers of foreign technology? And that's a very big problem, depending on the answer you give us right now.
Well, this is something that we don't talk about enough, because if you look at it, Africa actually has thousands of AI companies, fintech companies, and the rest of them. And most of these, we're built, more than 5 years ago. So we are not starting from zero. We have a foundation already. But the truth is that African AI startups have raised maybe like $800 million in total over 5 years. So that number itself will sound impressive until you realize that it's less than what one single Silicon Valley AI company can raise in one funding round. All right. So in 2024 alone, global AI investment itself eats about $100 to $130 billion. So when you think about Africa's share, it's just very little. But we've had successes in the past. I think one that I came across was a Tunisian AI startup that was founded in 2014 but then it has been acquired by a German giant in 2023. So it's been sold. So that remains the largest tech acquisition in African history as we speak. Well, I stand to be corrected. I think it's called InstaDeep. InstaDeep, yes. They used advanced AI to predict COVID-19 variants with about 92% accuracy, amongst many other innovations that they've done. So it was a world-class innovation itself, and was built in Africa by Africans. But then to scale globally, they had to move their headquarters from Tunis to London. And why is that? It's because the startup ecosystem, in Africa, in Tunis, it could not support that, $1 million funding round itself. So the infrastructure, the investor networks, the regulatory frameworks were simply not there. So we have a dependency trap right now. We are dependent on the foreign government. So we, to shape our own AI future, and we are letting them do it. Japan actually pledged to train about 30,000 African AI experts over 3 years. Microsoft also announced a $1 billion geothermal data center to be built in Kenya. So every of these things sounds like, okay, they are investing in us and all that. It sounds great, right? The problem is we are not building our own sovereign capacity when it comes to AI. Instead, we are building a dependency. So because when foreign entities fund your research work or help you to train your talent or build your data centers, you then ask the question, who exactly owns that intellectual property? Who controls the data? Who decides which problems will get solved first? Obviously, their problem first. So we can actually build our own tech giant. We can build our own AI agents because InstaDeep proved that. Well, we are at a crossroad right now. We can continue that part of dependency on foreign, intelligence, and then accepting foreign investment on their own terms. So we can make that hard investment now, invest in our own sovereign AI capacity to serve our own African needs.
All right. Just a few more questions before we go. Let's go back to what some of the global experts are saying. They voiced fears about the future of AI. And the question is, do you share some of those fears? Fears like how some of these, automations will become more intelligent and then take over and do stuff, right? Fears of how it will get into the hands of the wrong people and they can really cause really great harm when it comes to nations and continents and the world in general. What fears should we really be looking at right now? What fears do you have? Do you align with them? Where exactly should we be pitching our tent when it comes to trying to mitigate the risk that is coming ahead of us?
Well, those fears are very valid, I have to tell you. And I have those fears, to be honest with you. And I think anyone who's been paying attention to the whole news around AI should also, have that fear. But my fears are not about AI itself. It's about who exactly is controlling it, who holds the control for it, who is benefiting from it. Because as long as they are benefiting from it and the results are detrimental to people, they'll keep on benefiting, without the consequence of whatever is happening. So we need to be prepared for what is coming. I can't say I know what is coming in the next few years because every day there are new innovations. So the fears are grounded in what is currently happening right now. So that fear of control, like we both said, in terms of who exactly is controlling it. So there's a risk for super intelligence performance. Elon Musk and they're just trying to outperform each other, trying to get it performing at its best, doing things that have never been seen before. But there are really no plans on how to control it. All right. So a recent AI safety index found out that none of the major AI companies, all right, not Anthropic, not Google, Gemini, not OpenAI, scored above a D grade when they looked at existential safety planning. And frankly speaking, these tech giants are spending hundreds of billions of dollars to create super intelligent systems over which, we will lose control over. And there's also the unemployment threat. If you look at it, there's a fear that it threatens employment, which is playing out in real time already. Most people in our country, Nigeria, have lost their jobs to AI. You think about customer service roles in banks has been taken over by AI itself. So the International AI Safety Report in 2025, documents the risk, which includes mass employment, manipulation of public opinion, and biological attacks. So AI capabilities are actually accelerating faster than the safety measures. So they need to be moving parallel to each other. So many companies have actually come out to admit that there's a risk of failure. And this could be like 1 in 10, it could be 1 in 5, it could be 1 in 3. But they cannot justify or even improve those numbers. So if we come back home and we look at how it is specific to us and why we should even be more concerned itself, is that there is a bias and exclusion problem itself. If you look at it, most of those LLMs you look at, those large language models you look at, they perform way worse when it comes to African languages. And that is because they've been trained on imported bias data. They've been trained on foreign data. So there's a fear that we can even risk imported bias into our systems. So, AI systems that have been trained on foreign data will not reflect, our own realities as Africans. So when safety standards are set, we are not on the table. It means that African context is not put on the table. It's mostly ignored. Because without sovereign AI safety capacity, we will just end up vulnerable to threats that we can't even gain access to. Right. So, the fears are there. The fears are there. So I share these fears with this global expert, and I think we should build the capacity that will protect us.
All right. Finally, before I let you go, looking ahead, what does a responsible, and equitable AI future for Africa look like, and how do we get there?
Well, for Africa or for Nigeria?
Well, you can narrow it down, basically. You can narrow it down to Nigeria if that's where you want to go to.
Well, AI is doing, real transformative work in Africa generally. But we also need that we know we are walking into a new form of dependency if we are not careful. So there has been wins for the continent, to be honest. I mentioned Easter Dip longer, but the truth is that we are losing more than we are winning, and that's something that we need to sit back and think about realistically. Like, what are we gaining from AI itself? What are we losing by having AI? We have to probably just oppose both together and see where we stand exactly. So we've had a lot of breakthroughs when it comes to healthcare, most importantly financial inclusion. Our fintech is mostly AI driven. About 45 million previously unbanked Nigerians now have financial assets and all that. We've used AI for credit scoring, for most of the time when it comes to loans, checking people's credit worthiness, from mobile data and all that. So it's working, it's helping. But what needs to be asked right now is that how much are we gaining from it and how much are we losing? So we need to weigh both together. So like in 2024, I think when ChatGPT went down for a while, most businesses couldn't operate. So that's not sovereignty on its own. So we need to look into ourselves and try to look inwards and look ahead, put things in place for Africa and Nigeria to do better in the AI space.
All right, Oluwatosin Oyeladun, thank you for sharing your insights and for helping us, navigate the complex and often confusing landscape of AI data and digital opportunities in Africa. Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
All right, and that's the beam for today. As usual, we'll be leaving you with our top 5 videos of the week. I'm Sunes Nathaniel, reminding you, stay curious, stay informed, stay engaged, and keep beaming your light where it matters most. May this great nation continue to rise and flourish. Bye for now.